In the Sportslight is a show you can watch as many times as you want as it remains online. We aim to give you the opportunity to hear from athletes both past and present about their achievements and accomplishments. Now let's join your host, Earl Baisden. Your view on Bermuda Day in general, on the sports side. How do you view it?
I mean, it's a fantastic day. The atmosphere is unbelievable. You know, all of Bermuda comes out to watch the cycling, the running, the skating, the kids. It's a phenomenal day for sports, and it's something that it's a highlight for the athletes as well. You know, of course, the cycling, talking from the cycling perspective, I mean, this is a 13-mile race, the shortest race I've ever done in my life. One of the hardest. So again, it's a lot of prestige behind 24th of May Bermuda Day events.
How do you view the changes that have taken place thus far from the time you won it some years ago to up to today?
Well, I think cycling itself has been evolving over the last couple of decades as well. It's a lot more team oriented. It's very difficult to go out there without a team and at some point offering some help, and so it's a lot less of an individual sport as it historically was. So it's an environment in Bermuda where, especially if you look at the last decade or so, you've got a lot more people into cycling. The level of riding has raised tremendously for the island, and I think that I think the future of cycling is bright.
Now we have these young, dynamic riders: Dominic Mayo, Shannon Lawrence, Mark Haverly, the likes of Darren Glassford and Arthur Pitcher and so forth.
Yes.
Take us back to when you had just come back,
right,
and you ended up winning.
Well, you gotta understand. I mean, I rode at a very high level in the States. In my mind, that was, I kind of hung up my boots, so to say, when I moved back home. But of course, still being fit and still doing a lot of local riding. The first year I did this race, of course, when I was riding at my best, I never came home to do this. You hear all the hype about it. I've always known and watched it from back when Sinclair and the boys started doing this. I remember the first time I did this, and you got to appreciate that, I was doing 100-mile races a couple of times a weekend. So do a 13-mile race, it's like, please. I remember the flag dropped. I went past the pace car, everything just flying off the front. And I remember thinking, by the time I got to White Hill, as of course I was back in the field there thinking, oh no, I'm not going to make the town. Because, it's very easy to overextend yourself. So it was a very interesting tactical race. Strongest person doesn't always win. I think it's going to, I doubt that it's going to be one person riding off the front like we saw last year. I think there's going to be probably 4 or 5 guys that can ride away from the rest of the field, and I think it's going to come down to them.
Well, years ago we had the issue of visitors being allowed to race. Right. Then there's a lot of talk about professionals, and obviously Tyler Butterfield is a professional, not in athletics, but in the sport of triathlon. There are some people questioning why would a professional be allowed to run. Your take on the situation?
Well, first of all, Tyler's a Bermudian, so that's a non-issue. And I think this is a Bermuda Day race. It's just not even debatable from my perspective. As I think about it, I wouldn't have a problem necessarily having professional people come down and race, or foreigners come down and race. When you have, this is not a national championship. If it was a national championship, a lot of times, even national championships in the United States, some of the national champion isn't necessarily the person who won the event. They're just the first national to cross the line. So I think that the more, we have a lot of talent in Bermuda. We've got some extraordinarily talented athletes. I mean, look at all of our juniors coming through now, which are functioning at a higher level than their predecessors. So I think as we continue to raise the level of sport in Bermuda, having international folk come down and do it just means that we're on the map a little bit more, and I think it would enhance our athletes. So my personal view is that I would be open to that.
Now, 2015, the race will switch and come from the East End, God's country. Your take on the decision to do that?
Well, I'm open to it. I mean, the race used to come from the East End in years gone past as well, so it's nothing new. I think it'll be interesting. It opens different challenges. If you start to look at that course, you don't have really difficult steep hills like Burnt House and then Inverurie, which hurt after a while. But once you come from flats, you're pretty much uphill until you get to the Arboretum, for all intents and purposes, with a little downhill in between. So it's going to have a different challenge.
Now, the sports, you were talking about it earlier, sports of late has been highlighted throughout the island with some outstanding performances. As the minister, and you get a chance to go around and see different events take place, let's focus a little bit on the recently concluded squash event at the squash club, where we had the 8 former number ones, or the Masters tournament. Bringing events like that to Bermuda, a chance for locals to see that type of talent. How does that work in with the ministry, obviously, and the girls?
I think that it works in significantly. As you know, we're about to launch this national sports policy that's been talked about for a long time. Norbert Simons, the director of youth sport and recreation of his team, has done a tremendous job putting this together and collaborating with the NSGBs and the sporting community at large. And I think that you'll see the focus here is on youth development and that sort of direction primarily. Now, my view has always been that part of that development and looking at where Bermuda is as an island, our low-hanging fruit, going down the sports tourism route, is Masters events. And I think we've had a lot of junior events here which work well, and that's critical. We start to get into Masters events as well. Not only does it, are they role models for our athletes, but they also offer some great competition for our athletes. And when you look at that demographic, and you look at Masters events worldwide, they tend to be highly regarded. They tend to be very well attended, and from a demographic that economically that can afford to travel and are looking for places like Bermuda to go to. So those are things that we've never really had a major push for as a country. I'd like to see us do more of that. And having competed in Masters events myself personally, the level of competition is significant, because most of your top Masters national athletes are former junior elite athletes, senior elite athletes that are now old, like me, and competing in Masters events.
Now, how do we bridge that gap? We have, over the years, had talented youngsters. We've seen the likes of Tyler, Flora, Tyrone, Arancha, go abroad and qualify for Olympics and so forth. But it just seems as if there's that gap. If we stay local, we don't get that push. As the minister, how do you envision helping to alleviate some of that stress?
Well, and that's a very good point. One of the things I would say that we need to utilize first are our former elite athletes that are not on island. You've got David Bascom, who's a former professional that wants to do things like this, and as a former professional in the DC area, has access.
Now, down the road, we got word early last week that Bermuda's on the final list to host the America's Cup. Sailing has a tremendous history in Bermuda, but significantly getting down to the last four for a country like Bermuda to host the America's Cup, which we all saw was fantastic in San Francisco.
Very significant. I mean, if you look at just the history of sailing in Bermuda, as you said, is significant. I mean, even part of the Bermuda Day holiday celebrations with the fitted dinghy races which go on just speaks to that heritage, and that's going on for almost a century and a half. And looking at America's Cup, I mean, the significance of this. So Bermuda has gotten into the Final Four, if you will. And it's something that initially they came to us and it's like, we can't compete on that. It's like, no, you need to put in a bid. So I think we have taken it seriously. And the significance of being in that group of Final Four, and I believe it's San Francisco, San Diego, Chicago, and Bermuda that are the finalists. Now, if you look at San Francisco last year where they had 1 million people on the waterfront, well, we can't do that in Bermuda. But certainly, if we were to use a Great Sound as an example, there are many significant vantage points. I think that it would be a huge gain for Bermuda if you look at the money that would have to be spent in our economy leading up to there from an infrastructure perspective, and of course the visitors that we'll see are significant. Even more significant, and why I think Bermuda is ideally situated for this is a worldwide event. Being in one extreme time zone or the other between United States and Europe, which are the main viewers of this worldwide event, if it's midday in one place, it's middle of the night in the other, and vice versa, where Bermuda is right in the middle. So from a time slot perspective for worldwide viewing, you don't get any better than this. And if we are selected as one of the final two, even if we don't win the cup, if you will, we still win, because the final two, of course, the winner has the actual final America's Cup race. The runner-up, if you will, get a lot of the qualifying races and the such. So in any event, it will be a good thing. I mean, we saw back toward the end of the 70s where America Cup team was doing some training in Bermuda and such, and that brought a lot of excitement. If you look at, what happened last year, I mean, people got killed in this America's Cup. I mean, it's intense. It's some extreme sport, if you will. You saw the speed of these 72-foot catamarans and coming within inches of each other, and of course, we did unfortunately have some lives lost. The excitement, as human nature goes, is extreme. And so I think this bodes well for Bermuda, and I think Bermuda should be extraordinarily proud that we've even made it this far.
Now, on a final note, let's look back at the year so far, highlighting some of the things that you could recall that have done Bermuda proud, people that have done Bermuda proud, just the country itself in sports. What the first quarter?
Wow, well, it's been amazing, and I'll stay away from naming the individual athletes because we don't have that much time. But we've done such a wonderful job. I mean, look at our Carifta athletes, track and field, and swimming. You look at some of our gymnastics team. You look at our para athletes, football, tennis, martial arts. A lot of these athletes are away in school as well and still represent Bermuda. So we're actually getting it to that next level where we're getting our students, with scholarships in school. Look at what we've done with our male and female triathletes. We've been doing some amazing things. Of course, we even have our women footballers in Turks and Caicos right now on World Cup qualifiers. So, again, we'd like to wish them all the best. And of course, being Bermuda Day, want to wish all of Bermuda a very happy Bermuda Day. And whatever you're doing, if it's out at the parade or if it's out at the dinghy races, or because of the different days when you're doing everything, let's just all kind of support our athletes, and of course not forget the work that Bermuda did in last year hosting the NatWest Island Games.